Today, we're going, as always, talk about books that we are reading, have just reread, because I like to reread a book every once in a while, or are in the midst of reading. So, you want to go first?
Sure.
Hooray! Okay.
So last month I talked about my foray into novels in verse, a genre that I've been rediscovering lately. Because I used to read it a lot when I was younger, and I've rediscovered the beauty of it. And so one of the authors, I talked about her last month, Margarita Engle, is like my new favorite. And she wrote a book that I thought was perfect for the month of June, because June 20th is World Refugee Day.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's a day that the UN created to honor refugees the world over. And this particular book, Tropical Secrets by Margaret Engle, is a book about the Holocaust refugees in Cuba.
Oh, neat.
So back during the Second World War, German refugees would leave Nazi Germany in the hopes of making it to either the United States or Canada. But most of them were actually turned away in both countries. Most of the refugee ships were turned away at the harbors in Canada and the US. And before they would go back to Germany, they would go to Cuba as like a last-ditch effort to try and find some safe refuge. And they would go to Cuba. And so this book is fictional, but it's based on the true events of what Holocaust refugees in Cuba went through.
We like a good historical fiction.
We do like a good historical fiction. And this one is, it's a novel in verse that's aimed probably at middle grade or YA. So probably like 10 to 13 years old. So it's not quite as mature as some of her other work in terms of its writing, but it is still beautiful. She's a stunning author. The way she describes people and nature is just beautiful. And this one, she chose to follow a little boy whose family couldn't afford to leave Germany, not all of them. So they chose to send him.
Oh.
And so they make plans to meet up in New York.
All by yourself?
All by himself.
Oh, wow.
A lot of the refugees were not necessarily Jewish. Mm-hmm. So you had Jewish people leaving Germany, but you also had non-Jewish people who had Jewish ties.
Or maybe they're marginalized in some way.
Yeah, or marginalized in some way. So you had people whose maybe grandparents were Jewish, but they're not Jewish. Or you had peoples of different race, all trying to get out of Germany. And Cuba, fun fact, I love random facts.
I love fun facts, yay.
So Cuba, there were people who took advantage of the refugees, obviously. But despite all of that, Cuba took in around 65,000 refugees during the...
For a small island, that's huge.
That's a huge number for such a small island. It's a very important story.
Yay.
And it's beautifully told. It's your turn.
On another note, which has nothing to do with refugees whatsoever, I am currently in the middle of reading The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. On the front by Kate Atkinson, it says, "A little beacon of pleasure." And it is. It is the funniest book. It's about 4 septuagenarians who are living in a luxury retirement home in England. And they call themselves the Thursday Murder Club. And one of them is a retired police investigator. And she has files, of course, that she's not supposed to have, but she has files of old unsolved murders and crimes. And so she and her friends in this Thursday Murder Club all get together every Thursday and talk about these crimes and see if they can maybe solve them.
And that sounds like so much fun.
It is like, that's where I'm going to be in about 20 years. I'm going to be a septuagenarian living in a luxury, okay, but maybe not a luxury home, but solving unsolved murders. That's so cool. Well, they have a real murder that's happened, and they're trying to solve it. Now, when I first started reading this book, all the characters, they all enter at some point, and you either really, really like them or you really, really don't. And one of the characters that I really, really didn't like, and I was hoping he was going to get bumped off in like the first chapter, didn't get bumped off. It wasn't him. So I'm like really kind of disappointed that he didn't get killed. But one of the things, I got to see if I can find it. Okay, so here we go. The Waitrose in Tunbridge Wells has a cafe. Ian Bentham parks his Range Rover in a handicap spot outside because it's nearest to the door. Walking in, he spots Bogdan by the window. Ian owes Bogdan 4,000 pounds. He's been stalling for a while in hopes that Bogdan is thrown out of the country, but thus far no luck. Anyway, he now has a real job for him, so it's all worked out okay. He gives the Pole a wave and approaches the counter. He scans the chalkboard looking for a coffee. Is all your coffee fair trade? Yes, all fair trade, says the smiling young woman behind the counter. Shame, says Ian. He doesn't want to pay an extra 15 pence to help someone he'll never meet in a country he'll never go to. Cup of tea, please. Almond milk. So there you go. That, in a nutshell, is one of the many reasons that I was hoping Ian Bentham was the murder victim, but thus far has not been bumped off. This is really funny.
There's always, a sequel that could happen.
I know. Well, I'm only halfway through, but it's a real quick read, but nobody's letting me read lately. It's really funny, and just the turn of phrase and some of the colloquial terms that they say in here just makes me laugh out loud. So Richard Osman apparently is a comedian. He's one of the best-known faces on British television as the host of hugely popular quiz shows, including Pointless, and is a regular guest on many others. He's created and worked as executive producer on numerous UK and US television shows, and The Thursday Murder Club is his debut novel. He lives in London. It is hilarious, and it's really, like I said, it is a little beacon of pleasure. So Kate Atkinson, you were right.
Oh, that's awesome! I love a good murder mystery, but I also like ones that are kind of lighter and.
Yeah, no, they make friends with a police constable, and she's a female police constable who had previously worked at the Met in London and is here in their little tiny village now. I don't know what she did or who was mad at her, but she she couldn't get demoted, so they transferred her. So I'm not exactly sure, but she's an excellent character too. So she's kind of like a hard. Kind of a edgy kind of character, and these little old people, they're so sweet, and they just love her. So it's great.
I love the matchiness you have going on here.
I know, I'm color coordinated and matching and everything.
Right? You've got color coordinated covers. They have a murder mystery with American Sherlock, murder forensics, and the birth of American CSI. This is cool. What is that one about?
Okay, American Sherlock is what it says it is. Again, I've just started this book. And in Berkeley, California in 1933, there is what is his name? Edward Oscar Heinrich is one of America's first forensic scientists. And it goes through, tells about different cases that he's worked on and the things that he solved like 4,000 cases in 20 years.
Wow.
So like he's like ridiculously ahead of his time. And the way he's described in the book, he sounds very much like Sherlock Holmes. So he would walk into a crime scene and like pinpoint, laser focus into the different clues. And he was like dogged when it came to like finding the answer and figuring stuff out. So he again, American Sherlock is an apt title for this book. And
he was a real person.
He's a real
fiction or kill character.
Yes, no, he's absolutely real. And Kate Winkler Dawson is the author of this, and she also wrote Death in the Air. So she is a nonfiction writer who writes about actual time and events.
Very cool. This one sounds really. That's awesome.
So what's your last one?
My last one is a book that I've actually been reading on and off for the last few months. It is Flint and Feather The Complete Poems of E. Pauline Johnson. And she
you
is,
mentioned that to me.
yes, she's a poet that I studied in university way back when, and I decided to
just the other day.
I decided to revisit her. I was inspired to revisit her, and I'm so glad I did. Her poetry is absolutely beautiful. The way that she describes nature and people is just wonderful to read. And she was actually known more as a performer during her actual life rather than a poet. She did publish during her lifetime, but she was known mostly as a performer.
What did she perform?
Her poetry.
Oh,
as far as I know, that's what she was. She was like she was like a spoken word poet, but back during the 1800s.
Oh, cool.
And it's just, to me, that's like, she would be.
I didn't know that was a job.
To listen, to read these poems now, I can just imagine being in the audience watching her perform them, and they would have been amazing. She was a mixed race woman. She had Mohawk and European heritage. So she was biracial, and so she had a lot of connections to the Indigenous population of Canada, and she was very in tune with the Indigenous population of Canada, and a lot of her poems are about those people and about the injustices they suffered, and about the culture and the way of life that they lived. But because she was mixed race, she also had a lot of connections to the European and to the white settlers, and so was able to make a living as a performer and as a poet that maybe she wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Again, another timely book because June the 21st is Indigenous Peoples Day.
It is a very timely book, but I've actually been reading it for the last few months, and I've just been dipping in and out of it, reading a couple of poems here and a couple of poems there. And it's just beautiful. And like I said, she's just her poetry is just lovely to read. If you're new to poetry, I would definitely recommend her. Her poems are very straightforward, but beautiful in their simplicity.
Poignant.
Yeah, very poignant, but they're very straightforward to read and to understand. But you don't lose any of the beauty from being straightforward, which I think is a testament to her writing ability. So yeah, I would definitely recommend her as well. So I've been hitting up the poetry.
Verse, books and verse and poetry.
Yeah.
And here I am, murder and mayhem.
Yep. We balance each other out nicely.
Eventually, yes. We can make it work.
We can.
Thank you everybody for visiting us, and we look forward to seeing you all in the library. Have a great day.